with the heroin at this stage?
Oh, it was sporadic, you know, but the speed, a lot of speed. Everyone takes speed and acid.
Yeah.
And really the paranoia and it was pretty out of control situation. And I was going to I went away, and then this is, you know, when you try and plan your own life, and it just never works. You know, you got to get out of your own. So I want to go and play with Joe Camilleri.
Yeah.
I love Joe Camilleri, so I went back down to Melbourne and lasted about a week in Melbourne, and I got this phone call about the Divinyls, manager of the Divinyls, and I copped it for that because I went and started playing with them, and some people at the beginning of the Divinyls they used to play with us in Matt Finish when they first started the Divinyls. And
so you do a double gig?
Yeah. They were like our support band.
Yeah.
And people made the mistake of thinking that the Divinyls were like a novelty act. It was a Chrissie, big mistake. And a few people who were around at the time, singers, really talked down to her. And she
made them eat shit eventually, didn't she?
If anybody, I mean, she was absolutely the real deal.
Yeah.
You know, she wasn't no novelty act. You know, she was the real thing. And
I saw an interview when she said that when you turned up to play in the band, you had great legs.
Ricky
had such great legs.
Show us your legs, Rick.
So I went and had a play with them. And then we went out. They said, we're going to go for Thai meal. And they told me this later, right? So we go to the Thai meal, and I'm like being still auditioned. They're asking me questions. And they told me later that they all had worked out these secret signals. Like they'd ask me a question, if the answer was right, they'd, you know.
That's okay.
Someone would do that or something. But it was a different thing, you know. Like Matt Finish were like fiercely anti-Countdown, anti-everything. You know, we were like angry young men, and if I could stay away from multinational record companies, and they were all the enemy, and you don't let anyone in. You know, while the Divinyls were a gang and fiercely kind of protective, but you know, lived in that world, Countdown, and you know, we did lots of.
What about some of those songs, mate? Because you got really, and this with respect to all the other band, but that Mark McEntee, creative genius. I mean, he's another one that walks that really edgy line, like out there.
Mark's, I think,
but the riffs that he used to come up with in those songs,
so iconic.
So I reckon Mark's almost on the
spectrum,
autism.
Wow!
Like he's so clever. He's so clever. His guitar playing is so orchestral, the way he plays.
His look was out there.
Well,
the way
walk
he
around
dressed.
with him. People just come up and offer you drugs all the time.
Really? So that's the game.
But him and Chrissy, there's two creative geniuses, and their relationships, like being documented. They were lovers. They fought. They moved apart. They got back together. They scratched and hit each other, and then they'd go and make music. I mean, it's crazy. And you were there during all of it.
So when I first joined, it was they weren't together, and then we, you know, Richard Harvey, who's an incredible story in himself, the drummer, who should have had his own TV show. One of the funniest and great drummer. I mean.
Had good swing.
Incredible drummer to play with. I mean, just has this rolling thing, you know, like Phil Rudd, you know, or Buzz from the Angels. They have this rolling, gorgeous thing to play with if you're a bass player. But Harv was. So Harv and I bonded, and we shared a room for 4 years, and we've gone out one night in Melbourne, and we were staying at a hotel called the Diplomat. And we've come back and get to this room and we can hear Mark and Chrissy talking, and there's steam coming out from under the door. And we're both out of our minds, and we're listening at the door. It's like they're together. They're in a relationship. They're fucking.
So what was the steam that was coming?
Steam bath.
It was. So we said, well, what was going on in your room last night? And Chrissy's like, well. if you put steam in the room, your voice is a lot better.
That's pretty clever.
There was 2 of you in them. And anyway, they tried to keep that a secret for about a week. But
was Jeremy Paul playing bass with the Divinyls at all?
he was right at the beginning.
He was, wasn't he? Right at the start. Yeah. Jeremy Paul from Air Supply.
I had to replace his bass parts.
Did they? Yeah.
I did. I had to replace his bass parts.
Yeah, but he had the big bands too, like Air Supply and that. Jeremy Paul. Are you talking about Jeremy Paul? Yeah. Yeah.
Jeremy, I don't know Jeremy.
Yeah.
I've heard a few things. I used to hear a few things, and I mean, when I got there, Mark Opitz, who was their producer, just said, "I want you to redo the bass parts on those songs." The Boys in Town.
Was it all right? Yeah.
And then we went and made an album. But
What
Chrissy,
about when that hit the air, Boys in Town?
Mate.
Did you think that was going to be a
classic?
hit? Or were you in the band then? No, that other guy was, right?
Yeah, so they had an EP.
Yeah.
And then when I joined, the EP had been out for a little while, and then we were going to go and do the album. They decided that instead of re-recording Boys in Town, there was another song that we just used the track and just redid the bass.
Okay.
With Mark. But, it was a funny band. Chrissy.
What about being in the States with them? What was that like, touring the States with the Divinyls?
The Divinyls were one of the first bands that was signed directly from
That's right.
from Australia to the States.
Yeah. So our manager,
So a label in America.
yeah,
Oh, wow.
we signed directly to Chrysalis.
Yep.
And
What a great name. Chrysalis.
now, how do you get a band? Well, it's actually a makeup. Yeah, Chrysalis. That's right. But it's a makeup of Chris Wright and Terry Ellis. There's a Chris.
That is great. That's great.
And they were Chris. I think they formed Island Records, and they had at the time of us of Pat Benatar, Billy Idol, Blondie,
Wow.
Ellen Foley.
For an Australian band to sign like that,
Well,
did
mate,
that break the ice? Did that really open doors up for all the other Aussie bands
No,
here?
the band that really opened it up was Men at Work.
Right.
And that was funny. That was so funny because when I was playing with Matt, we were in CBS one day in Sony, and there's a lovely man. His name's Peter Carpin. We used to call him Sir Lunch a lot, and he's an executive. And he said, "Come in here." And he's got a 12-inch single. Puts it on. And listen to this, and it was "Who Can It Be Now?"
Yeah.
And he said, and we knew Men at Work, and I thought they were a reggae band from Melbourne.
They
used
had
to-
that.
that
they used to
feel,
play at the Mansell Room, and
Yep.
when they come up, and I used to feel kind of sorry for them because they were all they had this tiny little van, and I've since played with Colin a bit, and I've done tours with him, and
He's a bit of a genius
he's
too, isn't he?
fantastic, man.
Yeah.
He's terrific.
Storyteller.
Oh,
He's
genius,
a
mate.
great
Genius,
storyteller. But he said, this band is going to be the biggest band in the world. Sir Lancelot said that to us. We were like, Matt and I were standing there, you're out of your mind. Hello?
Yeah.
And that's what happened. And so the first night we got to America in the Divinyls. We got taken out to a club, and the first person I see in the club is Colin. And he's sitting in this booth like this, just like with the eyes just roll around going, he said it's like being strapped on the front of a comet. Suddenly, I mean, launched into this stratosphere, And he's, so I reckon they opened the doors for us because it was all about like Men at Work and Crocodile Dundee.
Yeah.
And people were fascinated by Australia. And our manager was an amazing man called Vince Lovegrove, who was in the Valentines, the band The Valentines.
Yes.
And
Bit of a ledge, eh?
And he just, I don't know how he did it, but he got us signed to this record deal, and they flew us to New York, an unknown band. They gave us 3 apartments on Manhattan and put us in the best studio in the world, the Power Station, for 4 months.
To record that album. Wow.
Incredible.
Wow.
Absolutely. I mean, incredible.
What were the big gigs that you played with the Divinyls in America? Like, you must have played some very big gigs.
Well, we did a thing called the US Festival, which had 180,000 people.
Jeez.
What, at
there's
the
some
gig?
stuff on YouTube.
At the
about
gig?
that, yeah. Well, it was a 3-day thing, and Bowie, like there was us and INXS. We were the first 2 bands on.
Wow.
You know, INXS were not known
Yeah,
at all,
Minnows,
and Men
yeah.
at Work were on later on in the day. But there was like one night there was Bowie, there was Van Halen, The Clash, sorts of people playing.
They don't do that now. I went to so many concerts like that Ray was saying about at the Hordern Pavilion. There was some at the Showground as well. I saw Santana, Fleetwood Mac, someone else. They never do it now, do they? They were great days out.
Yeah.
You touched on the story before about supporting Aerosmith.
Yes.
Yeah, thank you.
Tell us a bit more
Thank
about
you.
that. Your
Please.
favourite band, Ray?
Thank
It's
you.
your favourite band?
I love Aerosmith. I love them.
Really? So
Thank you, Dawsey. He's always got me back.
Yeah,
So
we're
this is,
circling back.
This is so I just preface this by saying, like, for the past 10 years, there's been stuff about writing a book that's come up, and I've gone, no, I don't. Why? You know, it's like, I want to call it Who Gives a Fuck. I mean,
That's really catchy.
you sell a lot of books.
I'd buy it.
But really, and then my mum passed away last year, and she said, "Are you going to do it?" And then Dave Faulkner, who's quite a private, protective sort of guy, said, "Oh, you should write a book." So anyway, part of it, there's a whole story about Aerosmith, and they'd got back their original lineup back together, 1986. They asked us to do it. They asked us specifically to come with them. We get over there.
Had you met them before?
No.
So you're going to meet Steve Tyler, right?
So, how's this? You'll love this. You'll love this. We'd lost our drummer. So we auditioned all these drummers, and we wanted someone who was fiery, and replacing Richard Harvey, this kid has hitched down from Tugan on the Gold Coast, and he comes for an audition. He's like Keith Moon, and he was 19, so we got him. JJ Harris, his name is. So JJ has no boundaries, right? He's got no idea about anything except to smash drum kits. So we go,
hang on, he's come down from Tugan.
Yeah.
You've auditioned him. He's 19,
Yeah.
and you've gone. You're in.
yeah.
He's here. He's everywhere.
So JJ,
Yep. Wow.
So we go off with Aerosmith. We've all grown up with Aerosmith. First gig we do is in a stadium, you know, with them. The audience threw so much crap at us. They were throwing things called M80s. They're 1/8 of a stick of dynamite up onto the stage.
That's a collectible.
Where was this? What state?
This was the first gig was in Portland, Oregon.
Yeah, right.
Did you know this, Dawsey?
Oh, you know some of the story. Yeah.
Is that like a thunder? Like, remember
Like
the
a
thunders
bunger.
when we had like a bunger,
bunger,
about the size of a bunger.
bunger.
Right, yeah, red bunger.
And you'd be
yeah.
playing bang, you know. So we did the first gig, and we all go back to the hotel. And they what they were doing, they were basing themselves. They base themselves in Seattle or something. They fly back after each gig. The first gig, you know, we think we're touring with them for like 2 months or whatever it was. Just, you know, we'll all get to know it, but we'll just let it, you know. So we go to the hotel and they're all in the bar, right, at a table. So we were like, okay, we'll go and sit at this table over here.
As you do.
JJ comes down and he says, he's had about 100 beers and he's come down and he's gone, what's all this fucking bullshit? Says, two bands should be sitting with one another, and walks over to Joe Perry, you know, the second coolest guy, slaps him on the back and goes, JJ Harris from Tugan. And they're like,
fucking Tugan? Where the fuck's Tugan?
they go, sit down. They just loved him. And by the third gig, we found out that it was like a sport to throw stuff at the band that was playing with Aerosmith.
Oh, right.
So there was a hail of stuff. I had my eye closed with a coin. I mean, they were throwing all sorts of stuff at us. And so we went, fuck this, we'll go home. And Steven Tyler Said, you can't go home, I'll introduce you. So he would go on stage each night and introduce us.
What a champion.
And that stopped them from throwing shit.
Didn't stop them.
No, but
They still
They
threw.
were throwing smaller
cut about
stuff, weren't
20%
they?
down.
Smaller stuff, and we sold a lot of T-shirts.
Okay.
But
And what was
And
he
then-
like,
so-
Steve Tyler?
no, he's awesome.
Magic.
He's great.
I used to
They
love
were all lovely
of the
guys.
scarves he used to tie around the
No,
mic
they're
stand.
great
It was
guys.
just so unique. And what a voice.
And and they were all trying to stop taking drugs. But they were.
This is when they reformed, wasn't it?
Yeah.
86, Done with Mirrors, I think, was out there.
That's
Yeah.
right.
Yeah.
And you'd be walking down a corridor in a stadium, and a door would open, a bathroom, and it'd be him, or what you go, hey. And you go in, and you go, yeah. Chop out some coke and say, don't tell any of the other guys. And you go further down the corridor, and one of the other guys will go, come in here, It's funny.
But who did the harmonies? Because the harmonies are really rich, aren't they, in Aerosmith? Do they have backing singers or no? Who?
The other guitar player,
He's great.
he sang
But
a
he
lot.
was just in the back. He's in the back, yeah.
He was, and Joe Perry sang. I can't really remember.
Yeah.
But it was funny.
What
We
great songs.
we had this. It's probably the last time I've been in a fight. I think it was like the third gig when I got hit. I got hit by a coin. We had a band meeting. And we decided, okay, we'll try and see this out after Steven Tyler said he'd introduce us. The next gig, we've got this thing. Chrissy's like, okay, if anybody gets hit by anything or anything happens, come and tell me, and I'll tell them all to get fucked, right? And then we'll walk off.
And then 7 tons of shit comes up on stage when she goes,
Right.
go and get fucked in an Aussie accent. Just imagine.
Go on, get fucked. But so we're doing this gig, and we're going down really well. And we get to like the second last song or whatever, and it's like, where's Mark, the guitarist? And he's gone. He's walked
Like
off
there's a
stage.
few riffs missed out of the song.
So the gig sort of fizzled out. We had to sort of just walk off stage and fizzled out. And we get in the dressing room, and she's like, what the fuck? And he's like, oh, I was getting stuff thrown at me. She said, what about the fucking band meeting we had? Anyway, this fight starts. And like I said before, I'm Henry Kissinger, right? No one's ever seen, I'm kind of just sitting there, and I just lost the plot. And I picked up a garbage bin and threw it at them. And we're all like jet lag. We're stressed out. And I started screaming at them, and I grabbed him, and I've got him up against the wall, and I'm banging him against the wall, right?
Because he wasn't a very big bloke, was he? No,
and Vince, then I let him go, and I went out and sat outside the dressing room, and Vince comes out, and he's like, oh my God, how do you feel? And I said, excellent.
Had to get it
It's
out.
like 2 years of fucking, And I said, anyway, I go back in, I'm packing my bag, and said, the first car's going back to the hotel, and Mark goes, well, if Rick's going to be in the car, I'm not going. So I just grabbed him again. I got him in the shower stall this time, and I was like, I don't know, I just lost it. So I get back to the hotel, and then the adrenaline's come down, and I think, this is bad. So I go up to knock on Chrissy's door. Chrissy's like,
Do you have any clothes on?
Sorry,
just ask. Just
she
for the
said,
people.
She said,
No, that was for you, right?
it was. She says, I said, look, I'm really sorry about what happened. And she said, I hated you for about 30 seconds. But then I thought, you're right. Everything you said was right. Where is he? And he's down the corridor trying to get into his hotel room. She goes, you, and goes flying down the corridor. Whack!
Unbelievable. Can I just say
It was
this?
fantastic.
It was constant,
Mate,
all the time.
You know the Tullamarine Marine Freeway?
Yeah.
So we'd get 2 hire cars, 2 cars. Tour manager would take Mark and Chrissy, and the 3 of us would be in the other car. We're driving down the Tullamarine Freeway, and there's Mark walking along the middle of the Tullamarine Freeway.
Fucking let him out.
Pulled over. And he's like, I'm not playing with her. And he's got a black eye.
Oh, wow.
On that tour with Aerosmith, was that the first time you played in a stadium at that stage, or
No.
what's that like
we-
playing in a stadium? Anyway, the first time you play in a massive arena like that.
Well, we had played here, say, with Chisel.
Okay.
We'd done the last Chisel, the last stand.
The Last Stand, yeah.
So that was like that.
Yeah.
Playing. It was similar. And I don't know. We toured quite a bit over there. We did a long tour with the Cult.
Oh, okay.
And with the Psychedelic Furs. We did
What was that
tour.
song the Cult had?
She's Sanctuary.
What a tripper that singer.
Oh, that's another story.
What
too.
a tripper.
They were great. They were
Mate,
great.
he had you put
Loved
the
them.
big things round, wasn't
love
he? And
the
he
Cult.
had all the lace and that, yeah.
Oh, mate.
Come on. What? What's happening?
Oh, so
You got a bit of Cult.
So we.
Get back to the
It's just all flooded into the head.
Good, yeah.
Can I just before we start, have you heard from JJ Harris?
Oh, yes, I saw him just recently.
Do you know what he's doing?
Yes,
I'm
he's
just-
a pilot.
He's a pilot.
And he trains people.
Kamikaze pilot.
He trains people up on the Gold Coast to
Yeah,
fly.
and he's very keen interest in hi-fi.
What?
He's out there.
I have worked in a fair studios over the years.
A fair few.
Affairs.
Yeah.
And have a very keen interest in hi-fi.
He was only the drummer in the fucking Divinyls.
Yeah.
So he was in this band. This is a great thing. I wasn't.
Chevy
But
Chase,
he was in a band called Bang the Drum.
Oh, yeah, I remember that band.
And so he was in the band called Bang the Drum, and they got the Fleetwood Mac tour, and Mick Fleetwood's daughter was on the tour.
Oh,
and she,
no, he didn't.
And she
Did he bang the
so
drum?
everyone's but then they became known as Bang the Drummer's daughter.
Oh, man.
But
Imagine saying that. I put Mick Fleetwood's daughter away. That's cool.
you and Chrissy had a very close relationship, I believe, and you were really good friends.
Yes. Yeah, very,
What was
very
she
close.
really like?
Yeah, like really what
Gorgeous.
she was like.
Honest, upfront.
You know, she got. I always think she got this reputation for being. I mean, she'd she'd stand up for herself, and
Yeah, tough girl.
back then there weren't many women doing
There was none.
rock and roll.
There was none.
None.
Very few.
So she's in
you
this
mentioned
male.
Pat Benatar and that. There was a couple in
But
America,
in
wasn't
Australia, no
Not
one.
in
Like
Australia.
Wendy, was it Wendy?
Wendy
Yeah,
and the
but
Rockets.
she wasn't a rock and
the
roll.
Rockets.
No.
Cheetah, that was about it, wasn't it, really?
They weren't rock and roll singers, but those girls.
No, not like that.
No, not like Chrissie Amphlett.
So she.
Wendy Stapleton.
And so she's in this. It's all men, right? And it was funny when I first started playing with them. You go out to the Comb and Cutter at Blacktown, right? And the crowd,
The venue.
she'd come on, and these blokes.
It's not a
would be-
hairdresser,
Back then,
people.
there wasn't a
there's
full
an actual
set of
venue.
teeth in the whole venue.
There's no crab linguine out there.
Just to let everyone know.
Yeah. And this is fucking early mid-'80s or something.
Yeah.
Oh,
And-
punch on.
And so someone would yell out, you know, all these blokes would be up the front, they show us your what, you know, whatever. And she'd launch and she'd sometimes jump off the stage and fight someone, or she'd just be so aggressive back to the audience that it only took a couple of months, really, of you just see people sort of back off in the audience
Because they knew what was coming, yeah.
and she learned a lot off Barry Humphries, actually, about
How to
if you're
punch
in
people.
if you're in a character, you can say or do anything.
Yeah. That's
You know,
true.
Barry Humphries could say anything
Yes.
when he was Les Patterson.
So clever.
You know, so she kind of learnt that, and she's a beautiful looking girl, but she'd do this grotesque stuff.
She was little Paddy's
Cousin.
That's right. I read that in her book. Well, that's a fascinating relationship too.
Yeah, great. She's great, Patty Amphlett.
Yeah,
She's
yeah.
awesome.
Yeah.
But she was very opinion. You know, she didn't like being pushed around. And like I said before, you know, there were guys who were all in like the guys in the, how would you put it? Not the generation, but just the guys who were before us.
The
you know,
old school.
You know, like
Yeah.
the Little River Bands and
Yeah.
guys who kind of pat her on the head. You know, you didn't want to pat her on the head.
She'd
No
kick you in the
one's
balls
bad.
for doing that, wouldn't she? Unbelievable.
So did you talk about Selina's
Yeah.
gig? So we were doing a gig there, and we had a song called Siren that our other guitarist Bjarni had written, and he would sing the first verse and she would sing the second verse, and then they both sing the third verse.
Beautiful.
And she hated that sort of, you know. I mean, I love Barnes, you know, but you know, put your arm around the lead guitarist and you both sing together and it's all bro stuff, you know, Bon Jovi, all that. She hated that. So we're doing this gig at Selina's, and Bjarne was a bit of the odd man out in the Divinyls, lovely, lovely man, but it came from he was kind of different, you know. He said when she'd throw a mic on the ground, he'd say, "Oh, that's unprofessional." And we loved that stuff, you know. And so this one night, he's had a brain explosion on the stage. And it's packed at Selina's, all the record company, they're giving us gold records. And we're doing Siren at the end, and she gets to the third verse where they both sing. So he comes over and tries to sing through the microphone with her. And she's like, pushed him away. So he comes back again. She pushed him away again. So he got the shits and poked her with his guitar. So she walked over, full fist in the face, whack.
I wasn't there that night. I would have remembered that.
Took his guitar off, threw it on the ground, and stormed off.
And meanwhile, you are still playing.
Yeah. Mark, our other guitarist, is going. We got off stage, and he's like, "Where is he?" He completely missed the whole thing, but we thought it was the best thing he ever did in the band, you know, because the audience just went, and the record company just went, oh, you know, their band's breaking up in front of us, but it was, you know,
we've spoken about two of the major bands you're in.
Yeah, they're fighting.
Fucking punched on fucking all the time in those two bands. It's crazy when you think about it, isn't it?
Well, that leads us to the next band, doesn't it?
No, we don't do that in the Hoodoo Gurus.
Five for fighting.
What happened with the Divinyls for you to go, to leave them?
Yeah.
We punched on again after another gig.
No, I punched myself out. That's what I did. I just... oh, mate, it was just, the heroin thing started to really take over for me.
And were you realising that at the time?
Yeah, I knew.
Or
there
does
was
it try to trick you in your head?
Well, it's an insidious thing, you know. It creeps up on you, and we were going away so much. So we'd go to the States or you know, even here, you know, if you're touring, you don't walk up to someone in a pub and say, do you know where to get any heroin?
That's right.
They look at you in a really odd way if you do that. So I had to, my circle of friends in Sydney, I'd go away for 3 months or something, come back and someone's dead or someone's gone to jail or someone's, you know. So it's really like getting bad. It was fun when I was with Matt, I suppose it was. But it was getting to be a real problem. And then what it does... Did
Chrissie Amphlett and Mark... They didn't know?
No, because...
So did you feel like... Is it like deceitful? You're lying to them or...
Oh, yeah, you feel you've got this secret.
Yeah.
You've got this secret life, you know? And...
that must have been crazy living two lives.
It's exhausting.
Like that. Yeah.
It's exhausting. That's what a person in the hospital said to me when I first got in a hospital. They said, you must be exhausted. It's like trying to keep... you know, so a friend
all these balls in there,
trying to keep people away, and people are coming up going, oh, you know, you must have the most incredible life.
And
you're like,
I mean, were you wearing long sleeves and all that stuff so people couldn't see the marks? Or
oh yeah, I was pretty careful about that, and I didn't. I was doing that with needles for maybe 2 years. Before that, I wasn't, but. I've got a couple of funny stories about that if you want to hear one.
Absolutely.
Sure.
Absolutely.
Sure.
You see, so I like gallows humour, you know, like the stuff that when you do it, when it's happening, it's like tragic.
You look back and go, yeah.
So it was right at the end for me. It was right near the end where I sort of thought, fuck, I can't go on. Was
there actually a moment?
There was.
And this is it?
No. This was maybe a week before it.
Yeah.
But we're doing these shows called Australian Made. And it was Barnsey, In Excess.
I remember them.
Us, the Models, Saints, Mental as Anything. So I know this sounds kind of grotesque to talk about, but if you're using heroin and you're using it shooting it up, it's a bit of a process to actually do that. So I've gone out to this, and the last couple of years for me was all about just maintaining, feeling okay, wasn't about party time or, it wasn't about, great, it was just have a little bit during the day just to feel normal.
Do you know at this stage that if you go off it, you're going to be sick?
Oh, mate,
you're
I've
going
been
to be really
sick many times.
Yeah.
Many times.
And does that make you think, well, I don't want to go off it, I'll just have a little bit so I don't get that sick and go through the withdrawals?
Yeah. But it was more emotionally feeling normal, And so I've gone out. The gig they had here was at Shark Park. And it's in January. Boiling hot. We get out there and the backstage area is not like it was now. It's like demountables. I get out there and I think, where am I going to go to have this? Portaloo. That's the only place to go.
Oh, fuck.
So I go into the Portaloo, and the Portaloo, there's no light. So you've got to see what you're doing. So I'm in the fucking Portaloo for like 40 minutes, trying to see what I'm doing, and I'm like drenched.
Dudes knocking on the door?
No,
Yeah.
there's a whole lot, but I was drenched. And I had this stuff, this shot, and then opened the door, and the air came in, and I blacked out and fell out of the Portaloo on my face on the grass. And I looked up, and I just hear Rick, and I look up, and there's the Australian music industry standing in a circle, all going, "You okay? You okay?"
Oh, and did anybody know at that
And
stage?
I jumped up and I went, "All good, all good." And I remember walking back to the dressing room thinking, "Shit, I nearly got found out." Wow. And they're all looking at me going,
"Oh," and they would have known.
Of course,
of course
they did.
And a week later, what happened?
So a week later, I was.
Did you get up and play then?
Yeah.
Wow.
But someone said, "Oh, you must have been really out of it when you were playing." And never. You could not play in the Divinyls if you're out of it. Physically, you couldn't do it. So it was just about maintaining, trying to feel normal. And then we went to where did we go? We went to Byron Bay, and I didn't have anything, and I got sick, physically sick. And then we went up to Brisbane, and someone from our office was coming up. And it's amazing what you can do when you're desperate, And I got on the phone, and I've manipulated this whole thing with this drug dealer to drop something off to somebody, and they're going to bring it into the office, and the office are going to give it to this person who's coming up, and they don't know what I just said it's a cassette that I need. So he's arrived in Brisbane. I've made an amend to him because I told him years later that the thing
He bought up heroin. Wow.
Yeah. And he arrived. We were just leaving for the gig. It was one of those big suburban hotels in Brisbane, Alexander Hills or something like that. And it was a big pub. And we get out there, and there's a motel attached to it. And he's handed me this stuff as I'm in the car, right? And I'd been sick, physically. You get it's like flu.
Yeah.
And we get out there, and it's a motel. They give you a motel room as a dressing room. We go in there, and Chrissy immediately straight in the bathroom. I'm like, oh, I've got to find somewhere. So I'm running around in the pub trying to find somewhere. And I find this toilet down underneath the staff toilet or something. So I go in there and I have this little bit, and immediately it's like, Popeye used to have the spinach. It's like, whoa, I'm ready to go. And
is it really like that?
Yeah,
like
so,
immediately.
And so,
wow.
Yeah. And so I get on stage, and I'm like, this is awesome.
Widow.
Well, Ray, that's one thing I've never ever tried, heroin.
Yeah.
Never ever gone near it. I got handed a needle at a party in Maroubra one night, and I was about 19. I was playing second grade cricket already, and these blokes said, "You're going to really love this," and I handed the needle back.
Oh, mate, incredible.
Is that one of the best decisions in my life that I've ever made? Yeah, I think about it now.
No question.
Think about it now, and I think, wow.
And the trouble is, it's an amazing thing at the beginning, and then you chase it, But that night I got on stage, and I was just, it was awesome. I was playing, and so this is great. The sound was awesome, and it was just great. And I looked down, there's some blood coming out of my arm, and it was crushed. I can't tell you, I was just crushed.
Did anybody else see that?
No. But I love playing music, and it removed that. So I didn't really love it anymore. And it had removed everything. It had removed. I wasn't I was a fairly social person.
Feeling dead inside.
Yeah,
really?
dead inside. Wow. Dead inside. And after that, about 2 days, we were finishing this tour, and I was up in Noosa. That's where my mum and my sister and close family friends, and I just told them what was going on. And then I came back to Sydney, and I just thought I didn't know what I was up against, you know. I just thought, maybe I need to go to the country need to, you know, have a few months off or something. And I tried to sort of bluff my way along for a little while, and we weren't playing. And then I told Mark and Chrissy that I needed to.
Did they know?
No, because they
had their own things going on. Yeah,
it was chaotic. You know, and they were big drinkers.
Were they surprised when you told them?
Oh, I'll never forget that meeting that we were all crying, and it was awful. It was
and
awful.
You said to them, "I've got to go away."
Yeah. And it was awful. It was because they were like a family.
Yeah.
And she was my, you know, and she's the.
She was your mother, eh?
Well, she wasn't my mother. She wouldn't like that very much. But I had a punch up with her, and maybe a week later, this is funny. And we had an office in the Cross, and I've gone up there to get some money, and she's there, and she's got me out. And I've told her that I told her a week before that I've got to stop, you know, and heroin, and she's pissed off. So we're out in the street outside the office, and she starts going at me in the street.
It's in the Cross.
Yeah, and she's like, "You fucking junkie," and you fucking and she's trying to throw a punch at me, and I was pushing her on her forehead away, and we're really close friends, right? And I remember saying to her, "No wonder why I take drugs, having to fucking play with a fucking idiot like you." And then we, you know, when you kind of, there's a moment, and we just stopped and looked up, and our office was next door to In Excess's office, and all of In Excess are out on the balcony, like watching. And Chrissy looks at me and goes, puts her arm through here and goes, "Let's go and get a cup of tea."
Wow.
Yeah. And it broke my heart. It broke my heart doing that. It really did.